So now we're going to talk about file input using Scanner. We already know how to use Scanner to read from system.in, which is the keyboard. And to read from a file, something other than the keyboard, all we need to do is provide a file argument. So it's really pretty easy. So for instance, we could use scanner, scan equals new scanner, new file, testing.txt, and then we could make a mistake. We could say scanner, scan equals new scanner, testing.txt like that. You would hope that this would be equivalent to this because we saw that happen with PrintWriter. In fact, if you say scanner, scan equals new scanner, testing.txt, it actually works with this string file. So we generally do not want to scan a text, just a string. We might, but almost all the time, for at least for the purposes of this video, we're going to be wanting to read from a file. So make sure you say new scanner, new file, and then provide a relative or an absolute path right here. The scanner methods that you know and love work just like they did previously. The only difference is what the source is. The source is not the keyboard anymore. And you can use has next to see whether or not there's anything left to scan in. So for example, here we have a chunk of code in which we are going to, first of all, use what we talked about previously. We're going to use PrintWriter to write out, and then we're going to use Scanner to read in. So I want you to hit pause for a moment. I just want you to study this code, and then we'll come back to talk about it. All right, let's see what happens here. So let me go ahead and get this back into play mode. All right, so here's our code. I'm going to go ahead and run it. I already did just for testing purposes. And let's try it one more time. F5. And behold, we have winners.txt. That is the contents here. So what actually happened? So first of all, with PrintWriter, we wrote out the nominee and a space and a random int and a new line character. So that's how we got these three characters showing up here. And then we went to Scanner and we specified the same file. And as long as scan had next, it scanned through the file one line at a time. Scan.next skips over white space and keeps scanning until it finds the next white space. So it read in the first name. Last name does the same. And then age scans from wherever the scanning left off right here. It keeps going until it reaches a white space. In this case, it's the new line character. And it converts that into an int because it's next int. And then we simply go ahead and print it out, which is why it's appearing right down here. So this sort of completes the circle. We see how we can write out to a text file and how we can read in from a text file. Any questions? You're not going to be able to ask them right now because I can't see you. All right, so here's an exercise that you ought to consider doing. Now, command line arguments. We have always written public static void main string array args, but we've never really done anything with that. If you run a program at the command line, which you simply do by typing Java, the name of your class without the .class extension, and any other arguments that you wish to on that line, these other arguments get converted. They're always treated as strings, and they are available to you in args. So for example, if I had, well here, let's do an example right here. All right, guess I am going to simply say for int I equals 0, I is less than args.length, I plus, and I'm going to go ahead and print args I, just like that. And these are all strings, so I can use println and everything will be fine. We don't need to see the rest of this running here. And now what I need to do is I need to go into the terminal. And let's see if I can make this work. So I need to go into the source directory. There's my app.java file. I need to compile it. So I'm going to say app.java. and it's compiled. And now you can see that I have my app.java and my app.class. So the class is basically the sort of the binary code. It's Java bytecode. And so to run that, I'll just say Java app, and I'll just say, hello world, how are you? And the question mark throws it off, I think. There we go. Hello world, how are you? Special characters sometimes are interpreted differently in the console, so that's why that question mark didn't work. But as you can see, other than that, this worked fine, and it read each one of these arguments. So that's how we can get things into args. We can do this for, there are a number of things that we can do with it. So for example, we could check to see whether or not we provided the right number of arguments. And if not, we could simply bail out of the program after first printing some sort of a helpful message so the user will know what they did wrong. And if, assuming that we've got the arguments, we could do something with it. So here's some sort of primitive code. It's simply going ahead and adding a bunch of numbers. Sort of convenient, actually, if you think about it, that you don't have to do anything fancy. Just Java, the name of the class, and then the arguments that we wish to have processed. You can read web pages. The same techniques that we've been using to read from a file will work if we're trying to read from a file on the web. You need to know the URL. URL is Uniform Resource Locator. And a Uniform Resource Locator, you should know, has many parts. The first is the scheme. Almost always we'll use HTTPS. If you don't see the S, do not connect to it. S stands for secure or something like that. And it means that it's going to be encrypted and no one can read that text while it's being sent en route. Not even the NSA. Not even the hackers in whatever other country it is that might be doing the hacking. Then you specify the host. This is the website you wish to connect to. And then you can provide some sort of a path to wherever you need to go. The .html represents an actual file. So here's an example. We first of all have to define a URL, and we can then use a scanner. We're going to open a stream, which is basically a connection to that to this URL, and then we can simply use scan in the usual way. Here we're reading it one line at a time. So next, we said, read until you got to a space. Next line reads until it gets to a new line character. And we can simply count the total number of characters. So it's this easy if you want to read from a file on the web. Well, I lied. It's not quite that easy because, as you might imagine, there's going to be exceptions being thrown and we have to handle those exceptions. So this shows how you might do it. Notice we have a malformed URL exception and an IO exception. These are the exceptions that can be thrown. A malformed URL exception, if you remember that tree where we showed exceptions, this was a type of IO exception. And remember, we want the most specific exception here and the more general exception to follow, so that if there was a malformed URL exception, it would get caught here. We might want to do something other than printing the stack trace. We might want to print out the message here. Okay, so that's how we can handle web pages. And that is it for our discussion of text.io. So thanks for watching this video. And as usual, if you have any questions, please